Hey guys, what's going on? This is Pierre and you're listening to Retailer Secrets. I don't know if you are ready, but if you're not ready, please get ready. Because today we are listening to an interview I've recorded a few weeks ago with Nicole Reyhle. And if you don't know her, she is the founder and publisher of likeminded, and as well as the co-founder of the Independent Retailer Conference. She definitely focuses on independent retailers and small businesses, and is a frequent guest and contributors to a lot of different media that includes the Today Show, Forbes, and a lot of others B2B publications. Today, you're going to hear a lot about digital touchpoints and what you guys can do to improve your touchpoints in the digital world, meaning dominating conversations and entry points in the digital, and get this to your stores. So this is super exciting. And if you guys don't know, she's also the author of the book Retail 101, the guide to managing and marketing your retail business. And today she accepted the invitation, and we will be having a conversation that you cannot miss. So please stay tuned and enjoy. And before I forget, if you haven't had the chance yet, please know traditional inventory management is dead, and I want to tell you more about it. So go to inventoryhacks.com so that we can also get you on the right track with your inventory. I've just spent the last decade learning the secrets of sales and marketing. And now I have joined a team of experts with the mission to give retailers the best possible tools for their operations. The real question is, with absolutely zero prior experiences in retail, how am I going to bring you the secrets that you need? This podcast is here to give you the answers. Join me as I learn from the best, how retailers thrive in the world that we know today, and follow along as I share only today's best secrets and practices to grow your retail business. My name is Pierre, and welcome to Retailer Secrets. Hey everyone, thank you so much for joining today, and welcome to Nicole today, and thank you so much for being a guest on the podcast today.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, absolutely. I've had so many, obviously you are pretty much all over the internet when you type retail and a bunch of keywords for retail and store owners. And I'm super excited that you are on and ready to give some value to store owners. I know that's pretty much what you do on a daily basis. So this is just, I guess, another thing that you do for others.
Yeah, I always say content creates conversation, and we're having a great conversation right now, or we're about to, I should say.
Yeah.
And I'm in the business of content. I'm constantly researching retail, out there talking about retail, writing about retail. So this is a great extension of that.
This is your world. I see you're founder of Retail Minded, which is your, I guess, the first and main business which is pretty much blog and publication about, like you said, anything to help independent retailers, news, education, support. I know you also co-founded the Independent Retailer Conference, which is happening very soon this year.
Yes, it is. It's coming up July 28th through July 31st in Las Vegas, and we hold that on site at one of the world's largest consumer trade shows called ASD Market Week. So it's a great place just to connect with retailers and industry leaders. And over 4 days, we give over 50 free, valuable educational sessions all about retail.
Wow, this is awesome. And it doesn't stop here, because on top of all of this, it's kind of overwhelming. The resume is pretty impressive, but thought leaders and, from companies like IBM, American Express, international speaker, obviously not only at your conference, but a bunch of other ones in retail, and author of Retail 101, the guide to managing and marketing your business. Definitely on my list. I still haven't got there because, as everybody who tries to read, it takes me forever to finish one book. So, but I'm very excited to actually get your opinion on a bunch of things that I would like to talk about. But the first thing is kind of understanding how you got in retail and how you got to do what you do today. Can you tell us a bit about that?
Yeah, as crazy as it sounds, I was so fortunate to grow up in a community just outside of Chicago in Illinois called Libertyville that had a really charming main street with a thriving local business scene. So from a very early age, I was introduced to small businesses and retailers and what that meant to community as well. And I just loved how that impacted my experiences, whether it was, going shopping with my mother or actually needing something and having to make a purchase and taking the time to, navigate stores. For whatever reason, as a young girl, I just remember in such a distinct way how that impacted, my thoughts and my future ultimately. And, at one point when I was old enough to get a quote unquote real job, if you will, this was going into high school, of course, so I was working part-time, but I worked for Nordstrom's, and Nordstrom's is, globally recognized as an industry leader when it comes to customer service and delivering on strong retail experiences in general. So,
Right.
Again, I'm only 16 at this point, and I'm learning from one of the best, and having already been influenced and intrigued, this just really pushed me over to a place of, I want to be a part of this, big picture. So, I studied retail business in college and was fortunate to have some experiences in my early 20s. So when my career was just officially starting out, I worked for Sears Corporate within their logistics and supply chain category. It was in the allocation of inventory, to be more specific,
Awesome.
and was fascinated by the supply chain side of the business. And then I flipped to the wholesale side and ended up working for a manufacturer of footwear called Franco Sarto Footwear, and became their national marketing director by the time I was 25, and
Wow.
moved from my hometown to the East Coast. And that's just a quick snapshot of what my sort of origins were, if you will, of how I fell in love with retail. But it gave me so much broad depth and understanding of the industry. I feel as if I was able to look at things from a lot of different perspectives. And in the business of retail, you have to look at things from a lot of different perspectives.
Right.
So I was very fortunate, and I remain very, very passionate. There's always something new to be learned.
And it seems like, interestingly, your experience started with, like you said, Nordstrom, and I know that they're very big on, like you said, customer experience and customer service, and then it was more towards logistics. It seems like you have actually had a chance to look into different areas of retail. Is there like one specific that you actually are absolutely in love with?
So I've always been extremely passionate about the independent retailer. So while I've had the opportunity to work with big, big brands like Nordstrom's, like Adidas, Adidas, all the major chains across the U.S. at one point or another throughout my career, I've learned so much from them and respect them so much. But my heart still remains with those independent retailers. And independent retailers nowadays are not just brick and mortar store owners, but they're also independent sellers. So these are the people who are making a livelihood selling, whether it is on Amazon or whether it's their own website. There's a lot of independent players that are quietly under the radar who make a huge economic impact within not only their local community, but the global community, right? So I find that extremely interesting, and I remain extremely passionate about that as well.
Yeah. And I read something that you said and you talked about and really connected with, and you talked about how independent retail shapes our communities. And it is so, there's nothing more true than this. And when we look at where we live and the quality of our, I guess, living has everything to do with our community and the stores that surround us and everything.
That's exactly right. So, if you think about just as consumers, we're also just general folks, right? We're just people, ordinary people who want to appreciate our time off, appreciate the time we have with friends and family. And we end up going within our communities or potentially the places we're traveling to gain those experiences. And so it's not just about shopping, but it's also about experiencing. And, from the flip side of that, if you're a retailer and you're helping to deliver those experiences, you're creating memories and moments for people. So it's a very complex, dynamic circle of life, if you will. And retail is just so dynamic, and it has so many influences on consumers' lives, right? But if you take away the word consumer and just look at these customers as ordinary people, you start to realize how important retail really is, because it's not just about making purchases. It's about making memories, memorable moments, shoppertainment, if you will.
Yeah. And in your experience, do you find this is actually something that used to be done better than it is today? Or is it just something that is changing over time because of, for example, the big arrival of the internet?
So that's a great question. And, I applaud you for challenging me and anyone with that, because I think it's pretty complex. But I think what happened is the internet and buying online became so exciting and so unordinary. Now it's ordinary. But for a while, it was unordinary, right? And
That's
because
right.
of that, I do think that brick and mortar retailers suffered a bit because customers were having to navigate how their purchases were going to be made. The luxury of having the ability to purchase from home became appealing to them. But we've seen, more so in recent years, that consumers don't just want to buy online. They still want physical shopping experiences. A report came out from Forrester Research and IBM that identified 53% of consumers start their purchase journey in a digital touch point. So they might start online, whether that's on their phone, their mobile device, or potentially their computer. It could even be scrolling through social media. And this is where they're first influenced to want to make a purchase. But what happens is consumers don't always just make that purchase immediately. This is their path to purchase. So now physical retailers are benefiting from consumers being able to be influenced online, but then coming into their own physical environments to make a purchase. Now, obviously, we know that doesn't happen exclusively, but it is truly evolving. I think consumers are appreciating brick and mortar experiences more and more. We see that, quite frankly, because someone like Amazon, okay, so there's lots of feelings about Amazon, whether it's good or bad, but the reality is Amazon's out there. Amazon is opening over 2,100 physical stores by the year 2021.
Right.
And what does that tell us? I mean, it tells us that physical retail is, in fact, not dead, but instead it is, in fact, thriving. There's opportunity there. Now, what physical retail looks like might have changed from over the years, but certainly it's alive and thriving. It just needs to accommodate the modern consumer.
Yeah, it is very interesting. In fact, yes, that Amazon, such a big player in online e-commerce and I guess everything that is against retail experiences that we know actually come in the game of retail, and it seems like they just only got in retail through e-commerce. So I guess there is not only one way to get in retail, and it's actually what I guess it's telling us. They've done a great job in capturing attention online, but then probably now driving people in actual physical places.
Yeah, one of the most fascinating things about Amazon, and within the last 6 months or so, I've had the opportunity to interview the VP of Physical Stores for Amazon. His name is Cameron James.
That's
as
awesome.
well as, yeah, it was very cool. And as well as I had the opportunity to tour one of their warehouse distribution centers just outside of Seattle. So collectively, a few takeaways that I gained from those experiences is that data, as much as we hear that word, they truly are using it to drive their future business decisions. That includes everything from inventory planning to customer management to physical store development, right? So because they have so much data and intelligence to reflect on, they're making more precise and more proactive decisions based on this intelligence. And when I spoke to Cameron at the Amazon 4-star store in Lone Tree, Colorado, it was the second one opened at the time. There's now a few more that have since been opened, but it was the second one in the country at the time that had been opened. He basically revealed that, listen, we are able to narrow down what customers want based on location, their demographics, based on purchase buying history found on Amazon.com, and then curate an inventory mix to a physical store environment that is very, very specific to that local demographical region. So I think that's fantastic because they're actually using this complex intelligence from online and bringing it into a physical environment. And then if you actually go into these stores and see how they merchandise them, they're providing updated real-time online reviews from past buyers. So consumers can look at that and be like, oh, well, Joe from the same zip code region has identified this product and provided a 5-star review and shared this feedback on it. And this is constantly being updated because customers want to gain other consumer insight, not just the retailer saying, yes, buy this, but rather somebody else saying it. So like we live in a world where we go to Yelp to identify where we might shop yet for the next time, I should say. And Amazon's using that same sort of strategy, if you will. So there's a lot of details there, of course, but I definitely think that as any retailer, small or large, you can learn from some of the actions they're taking.
Right. And it's really impressive and pretty amazing because in the end, one of the biggest key, I guess, to success in business in general is just understanding who you serve. And Amazon, I found a way to do it a lot better and faster and in more depth than anybody else, it seems. And that's using the technology that I guess everywhere else we fear, I guess, in retail. And it's truly amazing.
Absolutely. I agree. And that's a great word for it. Amazing. I mean, quite simply, that is what it is, right? It's complex, it's amazing, and it's continuing to change. That's the other thing that's most fascinating is that what's happening right now will be different in a year. And I think particularly as smaller merchants, whether you're a physical brick and mortar store, as an online seller, you have to be aware of that because you have to be forward thinking. Otherwise, you will fall in back place, right? So you will fall behind. And for larger retailers, the same. They're constantly looking ahead to be like, okay, how can we keep up? And the other piece of this puzzle is who are our consumers? Who is our buying audience? How is that unique generation of consumers different than what we've seen in the past, and how do we accommodate them? There's just so much to all of retail.
Yeah, that is so interesting. I see. I know there is this French guy, obviously French. I quote. There is this guy who talks about the 3 phases of a revolution, and that happened throughout history on any subject. And it seems it is very similar for what's happening with internet and digital touchpoints and commerce. And the 3 phases are: first, it is laughable, then it is dangerous or seen as dangerous, and then it is obvious. And it is funny because I feel like with digital, we're really in this space between dangerous and obvious, where we're evolving with the technology and think first that it is, we're kind of fearing the digital, and we think it's a threat to retail. And now we're starting to adapt and use it, and soon we'll think, obviously, we use digital touch points.
Absolutely. I mean, the digital revolution has been one of the most challenging in the history of commerce. It has destroyed traditional business models, but yet it has presented so much opportunity as well. And so I love what he said, that it's now some things become so obvious, right? Let's look at chatbots, for example. So chatbots help drive commerce in a variety of different ways, but it's expected in a recent study that was shared on Retail Dive. I think it was Juniper Research that did this study, and they identified that retail sales from chatbot-based interactions. So these are the interactions that happen from a website with a consumer. You can either type into it or often even speak to it directly, and they're forecasted to almost double every year by 2023. Wow. From what's currently a $7.3 billion industry right now, this present year, to now they're looking at $112 billion by 2023. So these interactions are going to surge, clearly. And yet 2 years ago, when chatbots first came out, everyone's like, huh, what? Why? Right? And now it's so obvious that they're actually making a huge impact on commerce.
Wow. Yeah. No, absolutely. And like you said, it is changing so fast. In 1 year, it's even hard to imagine, I guess, what could just happen, or what could what new things could be to help in business?
Yeah, so I think when we're looking at new, like what new things are going to come up, I think that smart speakers, if you will continue to evolve. So if you look at, let's say, an Amazon Echo, a device, it's relying on artificial intelligence as well as natural learning or natural language processing, which is NLP technologies, to help handle those chats. But I think that that is going to evolve into a stronger conversational commerce experience, right? So more voice-powered commerce. Now, do I think that's going to take away from some of the traditional commerce of present day? No, absolutely not. Because again, we have to consider all of the consumers out there. Not everyone wants to speak to make purchases. But I can tell you, I'm 41 years old. I have a 10-year-old daughter. And sometimes if I go in an effort to begin my path to purchase through a search journey, if you will, to ultimately, I know I'll ultimately go to a physical store. My daughter will sort of push me aside and do a navigation that is completely different than I would have, right? And yet the purchase will remain the same. But how we got to that purchase is entirely different.
Right.
So I think that that's what's interesting. So all of these things are not going to replace each other. They're just going to be part of that path to purchase that allows for consumers to make twists and turns without barrier. You don't want to have roadblocks in your path to purchase. And retailers are recognizing that by offering multiple ways, whether it's conversational commerce or chatbots or natural language processing implemented into their existing selling strategies. These are all going to influence how customers ultimately buy.
Right. And how do you think consumers make purchases nowadays? Or how do you see them being influenced? So we talk about all those different ways, and yes, what are the best ways or the most obvious ways that retailers should be using today to actually adjust to those changes?
Well, no matter what happens in retail, I think the number one thing that merchants have to recognize or understand, I should say, is who is their audience? Who are their customers, right? So by understanding that first, you can then identify the best strategies to implement your selling. And with that in mind, you must use data. You absolutely must reflect on the data that's coming into you from all the touch points of which consumer engagement takes place. So that includes your email marketing, your social media marketing, your actual website analytics, even Google Analytics and more complex systems like Google Analytics can identify where your customers are coming from, why they're leaving, how fast they're on one page versus another, even what hashtags they're using within their own browsers to start searches within social media, for example. So there's so much intelligence that's available for them that they must first understand their customer and then understand how to react to their customer. Because without knowing who your audience is, you'll never be able to support them the right, most effective ways. So that said, I think having, multiple avenues to that path to purchase is essential for whoever you are. Now, does it mean you're going to have the same avenues? Not necessarily. But as a retailer, it's important to have multiple avenues that ultimately lead to that final touch point of purchase. The thing is, nowadays, purchase is not just e-commerce or not just physical brick and mortar commerce. You also have social selling, right? Conversational selling. You have text message marketing. For some stores, that's a very relevant way to stay in touch with their consumers. There's a lot of great applications out there, such as Salesforce, which I'm a big fan of. It connects your in-store sales associate with your customers once they leave their store through a mobile connection, but still manages that customer relationship experience and ultimately can help drive sales even if the customer's left the store. So there's a lot of different ways that retailers can apply, this modern intelligence, modern technologies, these modern applications into their selling plans. And again, small or large, this has to happen.
Yeah. And it all has to start with understanding who you serve.
That's exactly right.
It can become so overwhelming to just these last 3 minutes of conversation, probably so overwhelming to hear if you're thinking that technology is not your thing and you don't understand how to use Facebook and what chatbots are. So, but I guess the only way to not making it overwhelming is understanding who your customers are, so that you can actually decide on what avenues your business should use.
That's exactly right. So I think that some of the largest variables right now that are impacting commerce are going to be supply chain. Supply chain is going to allow for a stronger prediction of demand, navigate the disruption that could happen during that path to purchase, as well as the shipping and logistics behind the scenes of purchase, right? And keeping businesses ahead of unpredictable buying trends and various touch points that will impact whether or not they make a purchase from your business or not, right? So supply chain, I think, is the new marketing of retail. I really believe that.
Very interesting.
Customers want fast. They want convenience. How does that happen? It happens behind the scenes. Okay. Supply chain isn't necessarily a sexy conversation. It's a lot more fun to talk about the front facing marketing, if you will, of a brand. But supply chain is going to make or break a business nowadays.
It is so funny what you say. I believe in totally. I mean, I'm a co-founder of a company called SwiftCount, and we do inventory, and that's not a sexy topic at all. but it is a very interesting the impact that it can have in any business. And I'm assuming you say supply chain is the new marketing for retail in terms of the data it can bring to you.
Absolutely. So, supply chain, when backed by artificial intelligence and the right data, of course, can help companies move ahead, right? Because it allows businesses to be more precise, more proactive, and more profitable.
Right.
But without supply chain understanding or implementation more so, businesses are positioned to kind of remain stale or at least slow. And if you're slow, you're simply not reacting to consumer demands. And again, this is across all business sizes. So there might be variations to what supply chain looks like for one business versus another. But the reality is meeting the demands of consumers must remain top of mind. And the demands of consumers is fast. It's convenient. It's at their leisure, not the retailer's leisure. So that might mean buy online, pick up in store, or it might mean purchase in store and have delivered to your business or to your home, wherever you want it delivered. It could potentially mean buy online and have shipped directly to you. So there's so many variables to how supply chain looks, but merchants need to be able to react to all of them.
Mm-hmm. And do you find it is something that retailers are actually behind with in terms of efficiency and what the data they can see? What we find is not only retailers, most of the retailers work with don't have data, but those who have, they either don't know they do or they don't know how to use it.
Here's what I find interesting is that there's so many savvy retailers out there that are in fact using these fantastic technologies out there to help them in their customer management as well as their supply chain and their overall inventory operations and so forth. But yet there's a disconnect sometimes with the employees that represent these same companies. I was in Victoria's Secret not long ago, and I was trying on something that I was excited about because it fit, it was my size, I was like, great. And they had provided it to me in the color of black, right? And so I said, okay, great, I'll take this in black, and I'd also like to get, white as well. And she goes, oh no, this is just a sample. We actually don't have it available in black.
Oh.
And I was so disappointed. That became a roadblock to my purchase, right? So you talk about your path to purchase. That became a roadblock because suddenly I was in a physical store. I identified what I want based on what a sales associate provided to me, only to then find out after trying things on for 15, 20 minutes that it's not available in the color that I'm physically trying on at the same time. I had no idea it was a sample size. And because of that, I was quite frankly disenchanted. And I thought to myself, why is she not first communicating that this is a sample and it might not be available in that color, or at least saying this is the size that's available in these colors, or we can provide, an online ship it directly to your home. And there was such a disconnect. So the point of that story is that while there's so many fantastic technologies and touch points that are connecting, often it's the front-facing employees who are still not communicating most efficiently to consumers. So I challenge retailers, please make your employees your advocates. These are your ambassadors to consumers. Make sure they are trained and you're investing in them just as much as you're investing in these technologies, because quite frankly, they can make or break sales as well. And in this case, it was a dead-end sale.
Right. Right. And especially when you're in physical store, and everybody is excited when shopping physically in a store. I mean, for me, it's anything related to video or cameras or anything like this, electronics. I will always buy in store because I'm just too excited to get out of the store with my purchase. And when you can't actually have access to it, I guess we go back to the convenience of, if I went online, I would know right away if it was in stock or if it was not. And so I was not wasting my time. But now this store is making me waste my time. And
that's exactly right. And you have to remember, for a physical store, and it sounds like you probably would agree to this as well, it's not just about the purchase, it's about the experience.
That's right.
And often, as a, I don't know if you've ever done this, but I know I've done this many, many times over my years. I'll say to a friend, my sister, whoever, hey, want to go shopping? Sometimes it's not about anything that I need, but rather the entertainment and experience of simply shopping, right, with someone. And physical stores in particular need to keep that top of mind, because if I walk in there, it's not just because, it's often because I do in fact want something, or I want to walk away with something. So yeah, they miss opportunities when they put a damper on those experiences.
Yeah. So I think that's a great point. Training your people to actually use or make sure that your business benefits from all the data you get, and to better the experience for the customer.
Absolutely. Yes.
Yeah. Makes total sense. I actually talking about front facing employees. Actually, I remember a story you were telling on stage one day, and it was about a friend of yours having Brad and Angelina Jolie coming to her store. And if you can tell a story, I think it made a great point about similar aspects.
Well, at the time, she had these fantastic celebrity couple coming to their stores years and years ago, and she was alerted by their personnel, their security, that they'd be coming. And she essentially said to me, hey, Nicole, I have no one to work for me. And I said, but you have about 20-something employees. I would imagine anyone would come on their day off or early before store hours to help accommodate this last-minute special request. And she basically said, no, it's not that they won't. It's that I don't want them to. She's like, none of them are qualified to support them. And at that time, I realized, wow, I'm like, all customers should be treated as if they are VIP.
Right.
When anybody walks in the store, customers should be treated with the red carpet treatment, so to speak. And so, over the years, I talk about the red carpet customer service treatment. It's one of the presentations I deliver, and I go into depth on what that looks like for retail stores. And in this case, quite simply, is be starstruck, treat them like royalty, and get their autograph. Because when you're getting their autograph, you're capturing essentially their credit card signature receipt, or you're saying, hey, let's stay in touch. Email marketing, social media, various touch points nowadays can be quote unquote identified as an autograph. So all retailers have to keep those things top of mind, because, again, without your employees being invested in, you're not invested in your own brand.
Yeah. And that's such a great question to ask yourself. What if a celebrity came in your store, and how do you feel about serving them? And would you do things differently? Because if you were to do things differently, maybe you should change the way you do things now.
That's exactly right. So if you cannot with confidence say, yes, every single person that is hired to interact with customers is qualified to support whoever, you believe to be your premier audience, then you're not doing your job right. In other words, if you do not have the confidence in your employees to represent any customer that comes in your store, then you need to take a step backwards reevaluate your employee management, your training, how you are training your own team from a front-facing perspective to interact with the customers. I don't know about you, but I go into a lot of stores where the employees barely acknowledge that I've even walked in. Now, I don't need to be bombarded once I walk in, but it would be nice to know that they're at least available should I need something, right?
Right.
Often they're too busy getting their to-do list done because retailers are busy people. But at the end of the day, you don't have a retail business if you don't have customers. So customers really do need to remain top of mind.
Yeah, no, for sure. Absolutely. And it is frustrating sometimes when walking in a store and actually there are people working in the store, but it's just, chatting between themselves, and I feel a little left out, it's just like, hey, I want to talk to you, or I don't know what's going on over there, but it looks better than what I'm doing here. So
yeah, that's exactly right. I see people who just converse with each other as friends, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they, they're working like, let's say 2 sales associates, and they're just having a good old time. And you have to wonder like, okay, what's up? I'm here too. But, our eyes are trained a little bit more critically than maybe most consumers. But I would say even an average consumer can recognize this isn't cool, right? So they either move on, especially if you're planning to invest some dollars there. You don't want to just throw your money anywhere. As customers, we have a choice. We know that there's competition, and we're willing to take it elsewhere if we're not satisfied.
Yeah, and I think to go back to the autograph thing that you were talking about, it's even though I'm not going out with a purchase, you still want to capture my information for building up this relationship and start to have those touch points that we were talking about. And so I think that's where sometimes confusion is in with employee-facing, front-facing employees and trying to make the sale, but the sale is not necessarily actually purchased right away, and it could just be trying to help and make sure that they capture my information so that they can build on those touch points.
That's exactly right. I mean, you have to remember too, it's, capturing that information is super important, but also making a lasting impression is too. Because if I go into a store and let's say I'm determined to find something specific, I'm shopping for, let's say, some throw pillows for my couch. If I don't find what I want, but I really enjoyed that store experience, I'm going to go back. But if I go there, I don't find what I want, and I had a undesirable experience, maybe the employees weren't paying attention, or there was challenges to the navigation of the store, whether it's music or displays, I'm not going to go again, right? Because I know I have other places that I can enjoy more.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Absolutely. And what do you think are, a few key, simple things that retailers can actually do or start implementing today to make this shift to, start bettering their touch points every day?
So I would say the one thing to make sure you're doing is to actually not just collect data, but review data, because technology is available, but it's only good to you if you're actually reacting to it, right? Some of the technologies react on their own, like inventory replenishment. That can happen on its own if you have that system in place. But it's still really important. The human touch is very influential in retail, despite all these savvy technologies available. So I think that's a lot of what intimidates retailers is, okay, if we get all this going, what will I do, right? That sometimes is a conversation I've been challenged with. Yet the reality is that your influence is still so strong. You need to be reviewing this data, reacting to this data, looking ahead, attending some of these great conferences and events out there, making sure you're investing the time and dollars to go to trade shows. These are all the places that you're going to learn what the next trends are, where you should be investing your marketing dollars, your behind the scene operational dollars. And then, of course, in between all those things, when you're actually in your store, in your office, in your business, making sure that you're reacting to consumer trends quickly. Again, supply chain, convenience, speed. These are things that are very, very influential when it comes to consumer satisfaction.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, I think one of the biggest the biggest key to survival in business today is definitely flexibility and being nimble when it comes to adapting to, like you say, trends and being able to and open to change, right?
Yes, I think you just said it best. That's fantastic. I couldn't agree more. And open to change, because the reality is commerce will continue to change.
Yeah, absolutely. And if the endpoint is really to serve best the community you chose to serve, change should not be an obstacle. It should be something that you're happy to do, because if that's a good decision and serving better, then that's what I need to do.
Absolutely. That's exactly right. And, as consumers continue to put demands on retailers really have no choice but to react to them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think it is absolutely amazing where retail is going and what's happening in the street. I mean, I live in Toronto and there are a ton of independent retailers, and I think it is quite unique actually, because it can't really be replicated in smaller cities. What's happening here, but I think it's the same as in any bigger cities, and we see a lot of diversity, a lot of character, a lot of personalities, and very different experiences when it comes to shopping. And you don't have to have a massive store. You can have a small one, very specific, or actually just very convenient. And they all do it in very different manners. And I mean, seeing the impact of the internet on their business in terms of either being findable or just providing those touch points like we talked about is absolutely amazing.
Yes, I agree. Absolutely. And I think that there will continue to be challenges, if you will. I don't think it's as easy as saying, okay, do this and all will be good. But I think that having a constant eye is necessary, and just keeping up with commerce and the demands of consumers.
Yeah. I mean, I think you said it best. And this is the pattern that I see talking with anybody who has experience in retail and who is helping the industry is go to the trade shows, go get around like-minded professionals and people, so that you actually see those trends and are able to react fast to them and forecast soon what your people changes are. And I think it's fantastic.
Yeah, I do too. You hit a great point there when you said like-minded professionals. I often tell retailers and professionals in general, I said, not everyone is competitive to each other. Positioning yourself around like-minded but non-competitive businesses, professionals is a great way to challenge your own growth and to learn from others. And even when you are learning from your own competition, there's so much to gain as well.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And seeing what others do, which it can be in the same industry or in different industry, helps so much to actually, expand on what you do and actually have a bit of fun and make it more of an adventure. And because at the end of the day, I mean, all the data we get and all of this is amazing, and it definitely signals patterns. But at some point in any marketing campaigns that you do, anything of this sort, it will be a bit of a guessing game in terms of trying to gather the right people around you and all this. So seeing what others do is just the best way to fuel your actions.
Absolutely. I agree. I love that. Fuel your action. That's well said.
Where can people go to learn more about you and what you do? What do you think would be the best thing they should go check out right after they finish listening to this episode?
So I would encourage people to check out retailminded.com. There is an abundance of just free information. We're constantly putting articles on there from industry leaders, experts. We also have a free resource guide. So these are Retail Minded approved resources that, we trust, and we say, hey, check these folks out, because, we know in the business of retail, there's a lot of moving pieces. So we try to, bring some clarity to that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. That's awesome. Free resource guide. So absolutely, retailminded.com. And again, I think there is the conference, the Independent Retailer Conference coming in July 28th to 31st. And if you've never been to a conference, then that's a great opportunity to start.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So this is held on site at a trade show as well, so you can double dip, if you will. You can source your inventory as well as participate in this free conference experience. So if you're registered for the show, it's free attendance to be a part of that independent retailer conference.
Awesome. I like to ask always to end the show by asking a question that is, what is one thing that you absolutely love going to buy in a physical store? I mean, for me, it is electronics, and I would spend a whole day in an electronics store. So I'm wondering, what is your thing?
Well, I wish I could say otherwise, but it's definitely handbags. So I have a lust for handbags, and I have too many, and I think it probably stems back to my footwear days when I was a marketing director for a footwear and handbag company, and it's just sort of continued ever since then. So I really enjoy getting into a physical store to, feel the bag, experience the bag, see what it might look like as I hold it, and that's going to help me make a purchase more so than buying online would.
That's awesome. Hey, I think we covered some amazing points today. I'm very happy that you came on and allowed our audience to have some golden nuggets about merging technology with retail and making sure that you actually dominate the touch points and the conversations, rather online to bring offline, or just adapt your offline store to accommodate the experience online. So thanks so much for joining. It's an absolute pleasure, and we'll definitely be seeing more of you in the next month and in the next years. So very excited for that.
Thank you. I appreciate you inviting me, and I look forward to continuing to study retail.
Hey, wasn't that awesome? Hey, I've got a free live webinar for you called Inventory Hacks, happening in the next few days, that's going to help you specifically with putting true inventory management on autopilot in your store. If you've been struggling with inventory sucking up all your time and available cash, then you need this webinar because, among other things, it reveals how to accurately know your inventory levels without struggling with consistency or needing highly qualified employees. Go to inventoryhacks.com and save your spot now for free. The reason why I'm doing this is because by working with store owners and giving them the tools to manage their stores, I realized that a big pattern in their success was not the tools alone, but how they were using them in very specific ways. And unless I share with you what I see, the systems successful store owners have in place to get their time and cash back, then I won't be able to help you with the tools. So all I need to do is go to inventoryhacks.com and register your free spot. This webinar is happening live, and it is limited to only 100 spots, so make sure to secure it now. Don't wait the last minute when there are no more spots available. So just to recap, you're getting live access to our free webinar, Inventory Hacks. This will help you implement true inventory management on autopilot in your store, including how to accurately know your inventory levels without struggling with consistency or needing highly qualified employees. Just go to inventoryhacks.com and save your seat now. I will see you on the webinar.